alibis. Got no ideas. Got no more words. I got nothing to feel. Got no memories that I still wanna share. I got no bushy tail, but I still got some hair. Got no teacher. Got no guru. Got no Nike. Got no FUBU. Got no feelings one way or the other. Got no sister. Got no brother.
I'm all out of everything,
And it don't feel right.
I'm all out of everything,
And it don't feel right.
I'm all out of everything,
So show me a sign.
I'm all out of everything,
Now that there's nothing to find. Got no flowers. No wind in the sails. Got no ear, voice, or U.S. postal mail. Got no love for the world at large. I got no hate for the folks in charge. Got no steam to keep me going. I got no pride to keep from showing. Oh,
I'm all out of everything,
and it don't feel right.
I'm all out of everything,
And it don't feel right.
I'm all out of everything,
So show me a sign.
I'm all out of everything,
Now that there's nothing to find. Got no messages that must be spread. Got no blood on my hands from the dead. Got no hope for a better tomorrow. I got no way to stop the sorrow.
I'm all out of everything,
And it don't feel right.
I'm all out of everything,
And it don't feel right.
I'm all out of everything,
So show me a sign.
I'm all out of everything,
Now that there's nothing to find. Now that there's nothing to find. I'm all out. I'm all out.
Hi. Catch my breath. My is Robert Moses, and come on out, guys. I'm artistic director of Robert Moses again, and I'm going to take just a second to catch my breath, let the dancers introduce themselves, and then I'm going to tell you a little bit about what you just saw and what you're going to see. Here you go.
Hi, my name is Jeremy. I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York, and this is my 3rd season with the company.
Hello, my name is Jackie. I'm also from the East Coast, New York, and been around since 2013.
Vincent Chavez from Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I joined RMK in 2012.
Hi, I'm Catherine Disanoff. I was born and raised in San Francisco, and I joined RMK last January.
Hello, my name is Victor Talledos. I'm from Mexico City, and I joined the company in 2012.
Hello, I'm Brendan Berthel. I'm from California, and I've been dancing with Robert since 2007.
Hi, I'm Carly Johnson. I was born and raised in San Francisco Bay Area, and I've been with Robert Moses since 2012.
Hello, I'm Norma Fong, and I was raised in San Jose, California, and I've been dancing with RMK since 2006.
Hey, I'm Crystal Dawn Bell. I'm from Ventura, California, and I've been dancing with Robert since 2010.
Hi. You guys have a seat. We're going to keep, this is going to be very informal. So I'm going to sit down and tell you that what you just saw is not really a piece. A lot of the way that we tend to work now is really about process. And this notion or idea had been existing before I started to use this piece of music, but I started to use this piece of music because I thought it really rang a bell for me. The pieces that we'll be performing this weekend are really about, in a lot of ways, that last moment after having lost hope and what you do at that moment, and the idea of being out of everything and nothing being able to satisfy you in any real way. And what do you do, and where do you go from there? So the new work, or some of the work we're going to show you over the course of this coming weekend, deals with that. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that as we move forward. But before we talk about that, I feel like I have to set you up a little bit in relationship to how you might want to look at the work. When I work, I'm really very interested in individuals before I am anything else. If I look at dancers, if I want to work with dancers, I need to know who they are, what it is that they have to share, what it is that we can do together, what areas can't I go into with them, and what areas are they willing to step into with me. And somewhere along the line, I figured out a process which I started to call draft. Every year I do something called draft. And what I do is in San Francisco, I find a number of dancers who I have not worked with, primarily haven't worked with, or I've worked with very little, or maybe I don't know at all, but they seem interesting to me. And what I do is I take 1 hour with each of those dancers, and we work in a very intensive way to create a solo. Some of them has been as little as 30 seconds, some have been as long as 4 minutes. And I do that with about 20 to 30 dancers each year, to sort of get to stay connected to the community and know who the dancers are. So then what we do after we do that is I get a date in the theater, and we get together usually the day before opening, and we create a work out of those 30 solos, out of those 30 experiences where the dancers haven't been together at all. I've been doing that for about 7 or 8 years, and it's really sort of reinforced for me that in a lot of ways, since a lot of my work is really about human beings, that it's really about individuals as much as it is about groups. So that being the case, it's really important to me that people make their own choices when they're dancing, that I give you a phrase, but the phrase is not about becoming a carbon copy of Robert Moses or only doing what it is that I coach. It's about filling the vessel, which is the movement, with you, who are the artist. So there's a sharing back and forth in that way. And to try to illustrate that, that's sort of a place that we start in the physical way. So to try to illustrate that, I'm going to ask the ladies in the company to stand. So what we're going to show you is a portion of a solo that I began in one of the draft versions. And usually what happens in the draft versions is if I invite you to come and do draft, is in the back of my head, I'm sort of interested in you in some way or not, or other. And this particular movement started with Crystal, in the room with Crystal for draft, and it went through a number of permutations and wound up in a piece called Fable and Faith, which was about children's stories and our responsibility to feed responsible material, not just sugar-coated fairy tales, to children to make sure that they're ready for the world. So what I did was I started this material with Crystal in the room in 1 hour, and it developed over some time. But what I want to do is I want to show you the other ladies doing portions of it, and then show it together, and then show you Crystal's inhabiting the movement. So if you ladies would, please. Thank you. So for me, in the differences, there's a whole palette to choose from, and then that way, I begin to sort of hone in on who they are. And I'm going to ask Crystal to come out and show this material now. Thank you. Hello? So that's a little excerpt from a work called Fable and Faith. I often work a great deal with gesture because gesture, I think, is inherently invested with meaning, whether or not we keep the meaning that that belonged to it initially or not, it's invested with meaning. And I'm going to show you another duet, which is just, it was primarily out of gestures as well, male and female facing each other. And I had one intention around it as I made the work and found with the audience in watching, a particular segment of the audience had a very different response to it than I thought they might. This particular duet we're going to show with a little different music today. So I'm going to ask Brendan and Norma to come out. And if you give me just a moment to check the music, we'll show you another way of sort of working with this. This is material that I had intention around, and a general intention stayed, but there was a response from a particular portion of the audience that was different than what I had intended, but we'll show this to you. Hello? Okay, great. The original music to that was actually Rolf Vaughan Williams, and I was trying to make a romantic duet that I thought would be an interesting challenge for me. And what happened was with the music, I actually had a lot of fathers and daughters who came to the program to see that, and came up afterwards and told me that they thought that that work actually looked like that kind of a relationship rather than the other. So I thought that that was an interesting sort of switch. So sometimes, as I said, sometimes the movement has intention behind it, sometimes it doesn't. For me, I'll start anywhere, but if I start with the movement, I try not to manage it in relationship to gender or race. I try not to presuppose that the movement for movement's sake has something inherent in it that I can't control, because I think being an artist means that you can in some way bend what's there. So for me, movement for movement's sake is a little different than the gestures which are actually for the sake of communicating something or saying something to people. about something. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you at this moment a male, female, and a two female duet. And these are just to show you how I treat something, sometimes if it's not intended to be other than just sort of physical exploration. Here we go. I think they're going to put a light on me because I'm bad and I'm sitting in the dark spot with no lights. Okay. So that is a way to go, but that's not the only way to go. Sometimes I'll take an image and remanage that image more than once in more than one place in the repertory. And so we're going to show you one of those places now. I started working on something called the Cinderella Theory, and the work began as a result. I had my first child, and with my wife, who's white, went to see a children's film festival. And what struck me at the film festival is that at that point, this was a little while ago, 10 years ago, that the films on the screen weren't representative of the people who were in the audience. There were, same-sex couples, interracial couples, intergenerational couples, children who were obviously adopted, things like that. And I thought this is maybe something that I can explore. That this non-representation is a story that might be interesting. And the idea of Cinderella, what if she was really, if the right fit was about the family and not about a man, or the child's right fit was about a family and not about a man. So I started to think about that and came up with this idea of this story. And with Anne Galjour, we did a lot of interviews with families. At that time, they were calling alternative families at that time. Now they just call them families. And there was a very particularly touching story about a woman who had adopted a young girl from Vietnam, and she would take her to the playground, and people would come up to her and ask her how much she had paid for her child. And it sort of struck me. And so the journey to the family for me in some ways was a lot longer than just sort of the trip to fill out the paperwork and come back. The journey to the family is to get other people to, and this is a terrible thing to say, but get other people to sort of accept you as, for who you are and as you are. We had a lot of language that we built up around this. We used to call things Safeway glances, and that's when you go to the supermarket and you walk by and they kind of look at you twice because maybe you don't look like that child belongs with you for some reason. So we did a lot of work around that. At any rate, the first image you'll see comes from that. And that image stayed in my mind, and I thought, well, maybe what we should do is try to see if we can morph that into something else. And so then later that image in another way became part of a piece that we're going to do this weekend called Never Be a World of Peace. And in my mind, that time it's really about oil slicks and nature dying. And in another piece, and something I did in Boston, the image came up again, and it was about romance and one-sided relationships. So we're going to try to fold all four of those notions into one so that you can see them as we do them now. You guys ready? Yeah. Okay, I'll stop talking. Hello? Okay, good. The other thing about having kids is that I also saw that image on a children's learning tool, a DVD. There was a duck running down some planks. I thought, let me try that. Yes, thank you. So in relationship to this notion of the individual and how they fit into the work and how they might further support the work, the beginning of Never Be a World of Peace is supported by a number of particular and individual solos that later figure into the work as non-linearly narrative. That's the best way I can say it. But in order to tell you where they really came from, I have to go back a little bit. I started Never Be a World of Peace in the classroom, and we, again, as I said at the beginning of our time together here, that we became interested in those low moments in your life and in peace movements and in liberation movements and struggles. And so we started talking about those low moments and what they might be and who might have a moment that was the most sort of disheartening, where the rose-colored glasses fell from your face. And one of the things that came up was the idea of Christ on the cross, if that's something that you believe on, and sort of looking up and saying, why have you forsaken me? Right? The idea that the belief has really fallen away, that it's really gone. Or being betrayed by a leader who you've put everything that you have behind. Or maybe it's yourself, and you've let yourself down in some way. And so we talked about that, and with some students in this class, we began to sort of develop some physical vocabulary for that. Some of this was pre-existing vocabulary, but some of it comes from the discussions about what does it mean to feel like that. And that's what I'll tell you about the start of this. And then immediately after that, because I think I'm getting a little long-winded, I can't tell. Immediately after that, we went from the individual to the larger notion of peace movements or struggles for independence. And immediately after that, you'll see a pretty blatant swipe at that idea. So we're going to start with solos, and then I'll take you straight to the next thing. Enjoy. When you're ready, guys. So my collaborators for this work are Laura Love, who's a fantastic folk, and I guess you could call her pop artist. Carl Hancock Rux, who's a brilliant spoken word artist and playwright, and Corey Harris, who's a brilliant blues and Afrocentric artist. And so I was very lucky. I called them each and I said, I'm thinking about making this piece about this idea of low moments and struggles. And they all had different takes on this. And so they all came to it with a lot of original music and work that spoke to what was important to them about it. And we worked together to create a couple of collaborative original pieces for this work. The one you're going to see now that we have time to do something with is by Laura Love. Here we go, guys.
Voulez-vous agiter pour la vie, c'est la guerre. Viva, viva, viva la résistance. 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 Voulez-vous agiter avec moi? Manif encore, les étudiants se réveillent. 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 Il est nécessaire pour nous résister. 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 Il est nécessaire pour nous résister.
Before we open this up to questions, you guys have a seat. I just want to say thank you to Laura and the Bates Dance Festival. This is the third time that I've been here. I think this is the first time for most of these dancers, and this is a fantastic festival and experience. So thank you. It's greatly appreciated. We love it. Glad to see so many students out there. Love y'all too. All right. Do you guys have any questions? 1, 2, 3, 4. Someone in the right. Yes, in the back. Yes.
I'm wondering about you're talking a lot about like individualism and solos, and a lot of the work consists of multiple bodies on stage. So, what do you tell your performers so that they're active in their stillness on stage, and are they like characters or dancers on stage, or what do they become in those moments? That's a great question. I tell them not to pull focus. And stillness is that. Stillness is about design, unless you're working in another form, and then the stillness can be about sort of a pregnant moment that has context to it, but it's not, for the most part in my work, about the context of the quiet, right? You can build the quiet into motion as well. I mean, there are places where things are still, but stillness is really about, it's about balance and about setting something off. And the thing that's being set off is the thing that should be shown. So that's in the design in my mind. Does that make sense? Yeah, okay. Other questions? Anyone? Yes. I have a responsibility as a citizen. Yes. Sure. Why don't you say it again, and I'll say it word for word. Go. I think, and tell me if I'm wrong, I think the question is, what are my responsibilities as an artist beyond movement for movement's sake? With that, if I say I'm representing something, then yes, of course I do. But I can't be a slave to the idea that my responsibility is the thing that's more important than the art if I'm an artist, right? So the art has to be first as an artist. And as a citizen, then I do the things that make sense as a citizen, right? I'm part of my community. I'll carry this placard, I'll stand with these people. As an artist, I make the art that makes sense in terms of trying to get to something that's as clear as possible. I think that the idea, and this is, and I know that I guess this is one of these things that's around now. The idea that, and it's been around for a while, the idea that that you have to sort of balance between the two, between the artist and responsibility. You can not balance, you can do one or the other, or you can feel that balance, but you can't, I don't think you can, actually, I don't think you can really balance it. I think one has to take precedent. That doesn't mean one has to take precedent always. So if I make a piece that I want to only say something about the war or wars, or about injustice in some way, then I can do that, but then that becomes political art rather than art first that has a political content. That's how I think about it. We can have I'm willing to have a knockdown drag out about that with anybody that wants to. So, anyone else? I'm gonna ask this young man here and then, yes.
I'm struck by the personal process that you described, the research, the collaboration. It sounds like each piece is a personal life project. And I wonder, what's the effect on you of completing a piece? How does it change you?
It doesn't change me. It is, I mean, it's part of my life. We did a piece called Silt just this past year. The full title is Silt, Death Powder, Silk, Death Powder, Thick. And it was about a lot of things. It was about privilege and ownership and things like that. But it was also about the death of my sister and sort of trying to get that out of me at the same time. She's still dead. I'm still dealing with it. So I'm still here in that way. So that's a real thing. So it's not therapy for me. It's the work. It's a different thing. Because that's sometimes where that question is going is like, are you working something out? I guess maybe I am, but it's not the thing that works it out. I may be done with that portion of it, but it doesn't work it out. Does that make sense? Okay. You had a question?
And see the spirituality in this? When you refer to Jesus, maybe?
Yeah. That was an academic question. I'm not a Christian, so I don't want to misrepresent. Yeah. Okay. That's fine. But what I'm saying is that was an academic question, and that's a very tender touchstone for some folks. And when we had that, so when I say that, what I'm saying is when we were having these discussions about what it is that means something to you, and the low moment, maybe someone came out to their parents and their parents weren't happy about it, or you lost your faith, or whatever those things are. Those things are very real moments and serious moments for folks. So when we have those moments in process, I try to respect those things. I'm sorry.
That all the great sages of all the ages said you must get out in the wilderness and turn your back on your family, and you must get into a zen place, and in order to push the boundary and get on the cutting edge of things and get beyond into self-discovery and self-work. And then if you tie it into artists being an advocate or activist, it's not encouraged in mainstream. It's shunted aside. It's all outside art. To have an activist poet or painting, it's not going to make the major galleries even. So what you're doing is this becoming mainstream, and are you using your bodies as your canvas, as Gandhi said you do?
If you're talking about, did you guys all hear the question? Okay. If you're talking about systems and you're saying, I know that idea that you have to shun in order to grow, I think that's not true. I think that's a weak and escapist way to go out finding something. Do the work, right? If your people are there with you and it's harder to do the work with your people, tough. If you want to do the thing, do the work. You have to find your own path in things. You really do. And this is just my idea about that. So when I hear those things, if I read that, I think that's an interesting notion about how to do that. And it may have been true for this person's life, but it's not true for everyone. And, you know, shun your family. I'm not going with that. That doesn't work for me. But I understand the idea. The idea behind that really is it's too much work to do this. And as soon as you say it's too much work to do this, then stop. Right? Because it's not too much work to do this. Do this thing, do the stuff that comes with it, right? You have to have the other job, do it. You have to start this business, do it. You've got to figure out how to go pick the kids up, do it. You've got to try to keep the company together, do it. If it's worth it to you, and then that's your life. If it's not, then find the other things that are worth it to you. That sounds. I don't really know how to respond to that. Yeah, okay, all right. Anyone else? Yes?
I have a question for the company members. Is there a common technique or a common training that you all share, or do you all come from different backgrounds?
I think, is it on? Oh. Well, I think I probably can speak for everybody. We just love dancing. We have completely different backgrounds. All of us are coming from completely different trainings. So some of them can tell you a little bit more about it.
Well, I came from a ballet background, so I was kind of raised in that whole circle of dance, kind of a bravura style of dancing. I really wanted to do all the classical stuff, and then like 4 or 5 years ago, I kind of wanted to go into more contemporary movement. But Robert does teach a class, an open class in San Francisco that we all attend often, and that's his technique. So we have that uniformity for ourselves, but then everybody in the company kind of does something different or does another style or aesthetic more often than others. Everybody has a little bit of a different workout regimen. Everybody dances for another company as well. So we all have one thing that we do together, but then we also do many other things as well, and Robert wants to see those things, and he wants you to bring all that in. He doesn't want you to, tell me if I'm wrong, come in with just his stuff. He wants you to bring everything in that you've learned and apply that to his process as well.
Just a little bit more about that. He kind of showed us a little bit, including me, because I was on the side, when he showed all the women doing the same phrase. So we could do it the same, but then he likes the different individuality of it. And I think on stage, when you start seeing us all move, it could look similar, but I feel like the thing that looks the same is that we're all giving what we have. And then it starts to become related because we're all giving with the same material, bringing our own individuality to it. And it brings the sense of community because we have the same base phrase, but then we bring ourselves. So I think that's a little bit how we can look similar. And his class on the weekend is called Moses Technique, so maybe it's Moses Technique you're seeing.
There's no Moses technique. There's an approach, and there's no more. There's a question in the back.
I was a little taken aback when you decided to actually go against the children's books and how fair. So what do you do for your own children?
That's a great question. What I'm saying is I could say that more clearly. What I'm saying is sort of that Disney idea of the kids thing, that Snow White happens in the way it's been happening since 1954, as opposed to the Grimm fairy tales notion where there's more depth to it. There's more complication in it. There's more about how life actually happens, that there are things out there that could really bite you, really. that those stories are around because they have some real idea and worth. And the idea was just that, the idea was, what are we actually feeding our kids? That was the idea that we were sort of looking at. And Cinderella is an incredible story that is in hundreds, so many cultures. I read so many stories and so many different stories about it. And when you read the different stories, you really see what the cultures are trying to deliver to the kids. That's what I mean. I don't mean that. I mean, you give them what you think is worthwhile, but I think some of the stuff is pablum, that it doesn't feed them past a certain point. That's an opinion, and we could talk about it later if you want to. Yeah, sure. Why not? Yeah, no. Okay, great. Then I would love to talk to you because one of the things we're doing now with Never Be a World of Peace is we got a grant to do a graphic novel of the work and to put it in the classroom. So yeah, I'd love to talk to you about that. Right. Well, then let's talk about it because because the children's books are really, they're entertainment, but they're really learning tools as well. At least in my mind. Maybe one more. One more. Anybody? One more. Two more. Last two. That was just further exploration of being on the floor. There was no content there that carried context that the women are on the floor and the man is. There was none of that. It was just sort of a further. The physical problem was I was out of rehearsal one day and I gave them a problem, and the physical problem was to make a floor phrase where they couldn't touch any of the soft parts of their body, so they had to go from their elbows to their wrists to their heads, and I gave them, I think, some additional direction around that, and that's basically what happened there, and I came back in the next day and we arranged that material. So, okay. There was one other question? Yes. I think okay, thank you. The question is, with the Cinderella theory, the idea being that there's a certain kind of underrepresentation of a certain population of society, and does that influence my other work? Yeah. I mean, I think I often look at things that are about the people who kind of get smacked around, either economically, socially, in terms of power. I often look at those things. But being a black artist, sometimes it's a little tough to sort of find those things and sometimes stay away from the notion, having to stay away from the notion of race because it's so cliched and there are a lot of traps with it. I spent a lot of time investigating that stuff, but what happens is, to a certain extent, you can paint yourself into a sort of a weird black corner where it seems like people imagine that you're not talking about the world, because when you talk about black people, you're only talking about black people, and you're not talking about people. And so that gets a little funny, but that doesn't mean, when I say that, that doesn't mean that I want to erase the particular experiences or experience of being black. It just means that when I do that, sometimes I literally spent about 4 or 5 years intentionally not doing work about race and moving on to other social issues, just because every question I got, either from a reporter or newspaper or whomever, was, how does this affect you as a black man? And to a certain extent now, the repertoire is a little broader than that, even though some of the focus is still on some of the things that mean something to me. It is, I don't get that question quite as much anymore. which means I have a little more freedom. Okay, well, thank you guys.